It's late. Too late, maybe. The world around you has gone quiet. Lights are dim, windows are shut, notifications have stopped. But your mind, your beautiful, spiraling, relentless mind, is still whispering. Or maybe it's not even whispering. Maybe it's loud. Maybe it's rehearsing old conversations you wish you could redo, or new ones you're terrified to face. Maybe it's flipping through old regrets like they're postcards from someone you used to be. Maybe it's not even about anything in particular, just a hum, an ache, an echo of something unresolved. And here you are, awake, still. Not because you're weak or broken or overthinking again, but because somewhere inside there's a part of you that's still waiting to be heard. So let's listen. Not with judgment, not with urgency, just with quiet, with breath, with space. You don't have to fix anything right now. You don't have to understand it all, but you can listen. Because sometimes the heart doesn't need answers. It just needs a voice. You've been strong all day, polite, responsible, composed. You smiled when you were tired. You answered messages when your soul wanted silence. You made decisions while part of you was still unsure. You gave and gave and gave. And then came nighttime. Night when there are no more roles to play, no more deadlines to meet, no more crowds to impress. Just you in a quiet room with the quiet version of yourself. And sometimes that version doesn't want to be silent. Sometimes it wants to cry without explaining, or remember someone without guilt, or wonder out loud why it still hurts after all this time. And all of that is okay. If you're still awake, maybe it's because your heart is tired of being held in. Maybe it wants to speak without being corrected, to ache without being told it's dramatic, to wish for something softer, slower, kinder, without apology. You are not weak for feeling more at night. The world is simply quieter, and so you can finally hear yourself. And what you hear might not always be poetic. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's scared, sometimes it's raw and unfinished. But it's yours, and it deserves to be known. Not because it's productive, not because it will turn into a revelation, but because this moment, this breath, this awareness is what being alive really is. Maybe you've spent a lifetime holding your breath in daylight, learning when to speak and when to stay quiet, when to nod and smile, when to suppress that lump in your throat. But night has no rules, no scripts, no stage. So breathe. Not the shallow, polite kind you take in public, but the real kind, the one that fills your chest and shakes something loose. There is no need to rush into sleep just to avoid yourself. Sleep will come, but maybe your heart needs to be heard first. Maybe the ache inside you is not a problem to solve, but a message. Maybe the tears you keep holding back aren't a sign of fragility, but a sign of something real trying to make its way to the surface. So what if you didn't resist it tonight? What if you let yourself feel the full weight of what you're carrying, not because it's comfortable, but because it's honest? You've been carrying so much. And I don't just mean the visible things. I mean the silent ones, the unspoken griefs, the dreams you abandoned because someone else couldn't understand them, the guilt over things you didn't know how to handle better, the people you tried to love but couldn't reach, the versions of you that never got to speak. Maybe tonight they're all gathering quietly in your chest, asking for one thing: to be held. Not solved, not judged, not transformed, just held. And you can do that, even now, especially now. You can be the witness they never had. You can be the voice they were waiting for, not by giving speeches, not by performing emotional acrobatics, but by being still, by saying, "I see you, I know you're here, and I'm not afraid of you." That's how healing starts, not with breakthroughs, but with presence. And presence doesn't mean you have all the answers. It just means you've stopped running. You've turned toward the parts of you that used to terrify you and said, "I'm listening." There's something sacred about the hour when the rest of the world sleeps and you are left alone with yourself. Not the curated self you show the world, not even the resilient one that gets through hard days, but the one underneath it all, the one you rarely let surface. And maybe that version of you is exhausted. Not physically, though maybe that too, but emotionally, spiritually. Exhausted from the effort of holding yourself together, of being fine when you're not, of nodding through conversations where no one really asks how you are and means it. So let me ask, how are you, really? Not in the way people ask in passing, not in a way that expects you to say good or busy or getting there, but in the way someone would ask if they were willing to sit in the dark with you, with no agenda, no expectation to cheer you up or make you useful. Because some nights don't need cheer. They need honesty. They need room. You might not have cried in months, and yet tonight, tears come easy. That's not regression, that's release. You might feel foolish for still missing them, for still hurting over something small, for not being over it yet. But there is no statute of limitations on heartbreak. There is no shame in missing someone who once held space in your life, even if they didn't know how to stay, even if they didn't deserve all that softness you gave them. You might be grieving a version of yourself you didn't even realize was gone. Or noticing that somewhere along the way, your joy started whispering instead of singing. That you've grown quieter, not out of peace, but out of fatigue. You might not even know what exactly is wrong, just that something is. That your chest feels heavy. That you keep checking your phone, hoping someone says something that makes you feel less invisible. And if that's true for you tonight, just know you're not alone. There are more hearts like yours than you think. Hearts that carry more than they show. Hearts that look functional by day, but unravel gently at night. Hearts that ache not for more attention, but for more understanding. Not for advice, but for presence. Not to be fixed, but to be accepted, fully and without edits. So, if you're still awake, maybe that's what your heart is really asking for. Not sleep, not answers, just presence. Yours. To sit with yourself the way you wish someone else would. To hold your own hand in the dark. To stop treating your soft spots like symptoms. You are not a problem. You are a person. You're a breathing, breaking, blooming thing. And you don't owe anyone a better version of you before you deserve to rest. Let that sink in. You don't have to be better to be worthy of peace. You don't have to be healed to deserve gentleness. You don't have to be on your way somewhere grand to matter. Sometimes the deepest growth happens in the pause, in the breath you let out when no one is watching, in the kindness you show yourself when you don't think you've earned it. That's when something real starts to shift, because that's when your heart begins to believe you're a safe place to come home to, and that's everything. That's how we learn to stop performing wholeness and start practicing honesty. That's how we stop confusing silence with suppression. That's how we stop waiting for someone else to give us permission to feel and start offering it to ourselves. So, tonight, maybe don't scroll past the ache. Maybe sit with it. Name it if you can. If you can't, just breathe with it. Let it know it doesn't scare you anymore. Let it know it has your attention. You're not here to silence your feelings. You're here to make peace with them, to learn their language, to honor their arrival, even the ones you wish would leave, especially those, because they're usually the ones that stayed hidden the longest. And they don't want to ruin your night. They want to be seen. So, if your chest tightens when you hear a certain song, pause. If your eyes sting when you think of a name, pause. If your stomach knots when a memory shows up uninvited, pause. Let it pass through. Let it move like a tide. Because you are not drowning. You are remembering. You are resurfacing. And on the other side of that ache is something softer. Something you've been needing. Not a solution, but maybe a little light. A little space. A quiet reminder that feeling deeply is not a flaw. It's a gift. Even when it wakes you at 2 a.m. It's okay if you don't feel better yet. This isn't a magic spell. It's not a quick fix. It's just a conversation between you and the parts of you that are so often left behind. And even that is enough. The fact that you stayed with yourself tonight, the fact that you chose not to numb, not to run, not to distract, that you met your own eyes in the mirror and didn't look away, that you breathed slowly and deliberately through the ache, that matters. Healing rarely arrives with a grand announcement. It doesn't always feel like clarity or closure. Sometimes it just feels like staying with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, even when the thoughts are messy, even when you wish you could be someone else. You stayed, and that is sacred. You may not feel like you've done anything heroic tonight, but I hope you know, for some of us, sitting in the silence without turning on a screen or reaching for something to numb the feeling is courage. Let that be enough for now. You don't have to solve your entire life tonight. You don't have to map out your next move or earn your rest. You're allowed to rest simply because you exist. You're allowed to close your eyes and not have all the answers. You're allowed to drift off knowing your worth isn't dependent on your productivity or emotional neatness. You're allowed to be a mystery, even to yourself. And even now, even in the heaviness or the not quite sureness of it all, there's something within you that's still tender, still hopeful, still reaching. That's your light. It might flicker, it might hide under blankets of doubt or fatigue, but it's still there. And tonight, you fed it. Not with perfection, but with presence. Not with strategy, but with softness. And maybe that's what your heart was asking for all along. So as you lay your head down, as the weight of the day finally begins to lift, whisper something kind to yourself. Not because you deserve it, but because you're human, and that is reason enough. You made it here, to this breath, to this page, to this moment of honesty. You've done enough for today. Close your eyes now, love. There's nothing more you need to carry into tomorrow. The world will wait. But for now, just sleep.